We hope you've been enjoying the Wild Cumberland Podcast, where you can stay up to date on everything affecting Cumberland Island and its wilderness. If you value our mission and purpose, we ask that you share this episode with at least one friend. This simple act helps us grow our audience and improve our messaging for the organization. We thank you for your support, and before you go, be sure that you're subscribed so that you don't miss an episode.
Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Jessica, Executive Director of Wild Cumberland.
And I'm Devin, a Wild Cumberland volunteer.
We appreciate you being here.
As always, we begin every episode with a reminder that our monthly email newsletter is the very best way to stay up to date on issues affecting Cumberland Island and its wilderness. We cover many of these topics in our discussions here, but not everything.
That's right. So if you're not already subscribed, go to our website, wildcumberland.org right now and sign up. This also ensures you're the first to know about exclusive opportunities and events.
Also, before we get started today, as a reminder, we have a voicemail feature set up on our website for listeners like you to leave us comments that we can cover on air. Isn't that right, Jess?
Yeah, we can answer your questions. So let us know what you're thinking, what you feel, and we can incorporate them here in this discussion.
In today's episode, we discuss the arrival of a new superintendent for the Seashore, which we happen to announce on April 1st, April Fool's Day, but thankfully this is absolutely not a joke. We also recap our Art of Activism event that we had. Oh, wow, this is back, how many?
Feels like weeks ago.
4 weeks ago? Yeah. We cover that, the development of a new trail from Crooked River State Park to St. Mary's, a lawsuit related to the NPS cashless policy, the Blake Plateau, and much more.
Yep. Let's just start with the big news, shall we? Let's just jump right in.
Head first.
The National Park Service announced the selection of Melissa Trenchick as Cumberland Island National Seashore's newest superintendent, effective April 21st. Please join us in welcoming Melissa, who will be the first permanent female superintendent in our history.
Wow. Congratulations, Melissa.
She will, of course, serve as the superintendent also of Fort Frederica National Monument. Those sites were combined under previous management, so Cumberland and Fort Frederica are now managed by the same super. Melissa was most recently serving as Chief of Resource Stewardship in Science, Interpretation, and Education at Buffalo National River.
Buffalo National River. Definitely had to Google where this was.
It's not one I knew off the top of my head, no.
It's in Arkansas, and it was established the same year as Cumberland Island National Seashore in 1972.
That's cool.
It's also America's first national river and one of the few remaining undammed rivers in the lower 48 states.
That's actually a kind of big deal.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Melissa has worked for both the U.S. Forest Service and Natural Resources Conservation Service, and she even has experience with the Department of Defense. So we're excited to meet her and learn more about her management and site priorities. Welcome,
sure.
Melissa.
Welcome, Melissa. Wild Cumberland is staffed entirely by volunteers. We say that a lot, often in passing, but we want to make sure our listeners understand what that really means. Our team members donate their time, effort, and talents to help ensure that Cumberland Island and its wilderness remain protected. Every volunteer can find a place with us. We invite you to sign up to staff Wild Cumberland events, contribute to the organization's social media, assist in grant writing, and much more. Join us at wildcumberland.org and help make a difference for the next generation. We're so grateful to everyone who was able to join our recent Art of Activism Stewards of the Wild experience. Actually take place at the Seven Stages Theater right here in Little Five Points.
Woo, woo. That was so fun.
Close to us. That was very fun. This free program was developed as part of the 2024 Atlanta Science Festival. The pre-reception featured delicious refreshments courtesy of Babs Midtown. That banana pudding.
Oh my gosh. Please stop. If he would give me the recipe for that, I would never leave home. I mean, it was so delicious. That's just one part of course, the event. But we've got to give due credit to Babs for the delicious appetizers they provided.
Absolutely fantastic.
And then our friend Betsy Harris, I don't want to forget Betsy. She came all the way up from the coast with foraged, handmade native syrups for us to make our own beverages.
Yeah, it was sort of like a create your own beverage situation kind of deal.
It was great. What was your favorite flavor? She had so many to choose from.
I could drink that Mayhaw syrup. All day.
That was so good.
All day. Everything was delicious, but the Mayhaw,
I think it might have been my
something
favorite
to go for, you know.
Yeah.
And the incredibly talented Dorothy O'Connor created a one-of-a-kind art installation inspired by Cumberland Island from natural materials.
Yep.
That piece remained as part of the set of True North, a production by our talented friends at Seven Stages Theater.
Yeah. So Dorothy, we've all seen the photos, we've all seen the videos that people shared online, but she created this lady, this figure of sorts. We call her the Big Lady.
The Big Lady.
You can hear more about that in an upcoming episode of our podcast, but she created this lady out of all natural forage materials. It was a very powerful demonstration and representation of the place, I think, that we are working so hard to protect, and was pretty central to the discussion. So Dorothy and I also went to see a production of True North. I'm not sure if you were able to make it, but the team did a fantastic job. It was really incredible to see how people were moved and touched by the message of that production. So
that's awesome.
We're so grateful to have been a part of it.
Yeah, and we're so grateful for our community members who were willing to share their experiences and perceptions of wildness, wilderness, stewardship. Our discussion included some VIPs as well.
Yeah, if you're connected to or care about Georgia's ecology in any way, you're likely familiar with some, if not all, of the folks who joined us.
Yeah, so help me out here a little bit, Jess. We had Al Troutman.
Yep.
We had
Sally Bethea.
Okay. Catherine Dudek.
Yes. G. Weber. Carmen Halga. I never pronounced this right. I'm sorry, Carmen.
That's
Carmen
why I left that one to you.
Halagahu. Ebony Preston Goddard. Margaret Spalding was there.
Emily Green.
And, of course, our very own Danny Purvis.
Yes.
Everybody contributed with their areas of expertise to a discussion about, as you mentioned, wilderness, wildness, and stewardship. It was pretty amazing.
It was amazing. Yeah. It was great to see everyone there.
It was. And, you know, we couldn't have pulled any of that off without the volunteers and partners who spent so much time collecting materials, painting walls. That includes you, developing audio tracks. Shout out to Greg, and so much more. It really helped create a sense of place for the experience. There was that whole hallway you had to walk through. It felt like walking through the wilderness.
Fantastic. I loved it. Actually, many people commented on the hallway. It was great.
It really was kind of an immersive thing. And we couldn't have done it without Atlanta Science Festival, who really helps to make that kind of programming happen across our city every year. So very grateful.
Seven Stages Theater. I'm sure we're missing some people, but
So
whoever
many.
you are, thank you so much that you made that happen. It was
Absolutely.
just an incredible experience. One more reminder about our virtual silent auction coming this May 3rd through the 5th. We've been a little quiet about this because our team has just been really busy and stretched so thin, you know, some of it going back to the Stewards of the Wild, Art of Activism. But our virtual silent auction is coming up very soon, May 3rd through the 5th.
Mark your calendars right now. Commitment to Cumberland. We do this once a year. And your participation is really what makes our work possible all year long. So 3 days, if we can get it together, it's going to be May 3rd through 5th. You will be the first to know as soon as those items are available to preview. And we are working really hard to announce those details.
Yes,
soon.
Details coming very soon.
That reminds me, Devin, did you and Anna manage to get in on that recent Wendy Barnes giveaway?
We did. I jumped on it like the first day that she announced it, right?
I'm so glad.
And you know what? I just checked my email on the way here, and unfortunately I did not win, but we did get a 25% off the entire Wild Cumberland collection that we're definitely going to use.
Oh, what a nice gesture.
I'll take the 25% off.
It's worth it for those products, right?
Absolutely.
So Wendy Barnes recently developed new patterns for all of her Georgia partners. I think there are 4, and we're one of those. We've been working with Wendy for several years now and are really proud to share her work with our audience. So we at Wild Cumberland believe in supporting artists, small businesses, and folks who share our awe of the natural world.
Yes.
So if you haven't checked out Wendy Barnes' new pattern that sponsors and supports our work, please do. It's really pretty, and I think you'll be happy to rock it at the beach or wherever you go all summer long. So that being said, we try hard to support those types of folks, small businesses, artists, and entrepreneurs who care about the things we do. And I think you'll see that reflected in our auction offerings in May as well. So if you're a fan of
100%.
Wendy and her work, I think you'll like what we have to offer.
Yes. So back to some Cumberland Island news.
Yeah.
Starting off with a sad one.
Okay, prepare yourselves.
As most of you know, because this made national and international news, the carcass of a North Atlantic right whale calf washed up on Cumberland Island on March the 3rd.
Yep.
The young calf, who belonged to Juno, number 1612, was originally spotted in January with severe injuries to its head, mouth, and lip. I think we covered that then.
Yeah, those injuries were attributed to a vessel somewhere between 35 and 57 feet long. Its carcass had been so heavily scavenged by sharks by the time it was discovered on Cumberland Island. It was pretty difficult, I think.
Fewer than 360 of these whales remain, and only about 70 of them are actual reproductive females in the right age.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a huge impact to that community.
Well, you may recall it was our Representative Buddy Carter who previously introduced legislation to delay the funding that would broaden the speed restriction zones. So it essentially that would extend additional protections and apply to vessels that were within that length, so 35 to 65 feet long previously.
But a proposal to expand those speed limits for the boats managed to move forward earlier this month, right?
Yeah, so right after they found that calf on Cumberland, this went under review by the White House Office of Information and Regulatory Affairs. So it's sort of the last stage of federal review, if you want to call it that. You can read more about that step and any additional actions you can take to help protect the species on our website. We've included some additional information and updated it there. But yeah, very sad news to report. We can remain hopeful for that ruling to pass.
Wild Cumberland joined who knows how many other organizations.
Like thousands.
And the rest of the world, including Leo DiCaprio.
Yeah, the one and only.
Yeah. We joined in opposition to mining by Twin Pines near the Okefenokee Swamp.
Yep. This comment period ended just on April 9th. You can find our full comments on our website. As you mentioned, every environmental organization, every conservation organization, every Georgian has opposed this project from the very beginning. So we are very hopeful that EPD will take heed to the response that's been generated from this public comment opportunity and do the right thing for our state.
Yeah, one can only hope on that one. Related to Spaceport Camden County finally moved to disband a spaceport authority established in 2019, but it's not official yet.
No, not yet. The license they actually approved for the Spaceport Camden site too doesn't expire until I think 2026. So there's a little bit of wiggle room here we should probably be paying attention to. And then locally too, St. Mary's was recently awarded like a crazy amount of money, almost $2 million to construct a 4-mile long trail. It's called the Tabby Trail, I think is what they're calling it. It's meant for hikers, bikers, wildlife viewers, bird watchers, education. It's supposed to connect Crooked River State Park in Camden County all the way down to the city of St. Mary's. So part of this East Coast Greenway, it's a multi-state initiative. They'll also have this cool viewing platform to see one of the largest wood stork rookeries in our state. So that's a big deal and should improve some connectivity through the county in terms of access to recreation and green space. Kind of interesting.
I'll have to read a little bit more about that one for sure and keep up with it. I'm pretty sure anyone listening to this podcast probably saw the news on this one. It was everywhere, but researchers have identified the largest ever deep sea coral reef, and it's not too far from us.
No, I don't think this was a big surprise to most naturalists or geologists, but it was revealed that the Blake Plateau features one of the largest aggregations of cold water coral mounds and reef structures ever discovered on our planet. So
amazing.
Only 100 miles offshore from the coasts of Florida, Georgia, South Carolina. It's like 6.5 million acres. And the average mound height of these corals is 65 feet. That's, from the seafloor.
Just 65
but the
feet.
tallest mounds, 561 feet
gosh.
above the seafloor.
From 65 feet to 560 feet.
It's amazing.
It's amazing.
They have been dated, the coral samples there have been dated between 5,000 and 44,000 years old.
Wow.
So a really big discovery, very close to where we are. And
Yeah.
it will be very interesting to see how that fits into larger sort of conservation and landscape protection.
Yeah. The ocean never ceases to amaze me. Who knows what's out there, you know? We also link to articles discussing why parts of the southeastern U.S. are not warmed as much as the rest of the country, and a whole lot more. But there's something else that I know Jess is dying to get to in this episode.
Oh, Devin, you know me really well. Yes, you're right. I'm really excited to announce. I was very happy when I woke up and saw this news a couple weeks back. The National Park Service has been sued over its cashless policy.
That feels like it was just a matter of time on that one. And it should be interesting to watch it play out.
I'm really interested. It seems so straightforward, yet could be so entertaining. I am really excited. I've been complaining about this for years. Devin.
If you've listened to at least one of these podcast episodes, you've probably heard Jessica talk about this. This policy has been implemented at an increasing number of national park sites in recent years. Cumberland Island, of course, implemented it back in 2022,
I think it's been 2 years now. And the concessionaire for the Park Service immediately followed suit. So
I was reading that the lawsuit that was filed, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but individual park managers are the ones who make the decision as to whether the individual sites go cashless. Is that right?
That's what it appears, yes, to be. It doesn't seem to be an agency-wide decision. It seems to be park unit specific, leaving that decision up to local management. The lawsuit itself is really interesting. There are 3 individuals who sued, and one of them is actually from Georgia, right down the road in Darien.
Okay.
One from New York and one from California. The suit was filed in Washington, and it's not that they're opposing cashless options. They're just asking the Park Service to also accept cash from its visitors.
Their own currency, right?
Right. The federal government's own tender. You've heard me say that maybe once or twice. So the National Park Service has to respond by May 16th. So I don't know, maybe by our next podcast episode, we'll have an update on that litigation. We also updated our website with some additional perspectives and comments, as you might have anticipated. So feel free to visit and read a little bit more about why we feel so strongly about that policy.
And speaking of money, we also mentioned that almost $200 million is supposed to be spent over 10 years on NPS climate restoration and resilience projects. You can view the full list of projects for yourself, but there are some projects listed for Cumberland Island National Seashore, actually.
Yep.
And I've never heard of this that was covered in our newsletter, but the World Wilderness Congress. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
So this is an international event. It only happens like every 4 or 5 years. I'm not sure how they decide when, but this year it takes place in the United States, and it goes back to like 1976. So wilderness advocates from around the world come together in different places to address what they consider the root cause of an environmental crisis, which is sort of this broken relationship with nature. So for decades, it's been the only option for people in, I don't know, government, business, indigenous people, artists, scholars, everyday folks like you and me to come together and coordinate as much as possible to keep our planet wild. It's hosted by a different country every time. And
that's probably why I haven't heard of it.
But this one provides input into the next IUCN World Conservation Congress, which happens in 2025. So this is a pretty cool opportunity if you're in the States to be able to participate in a bigger dialogue about our nation, not just our nation, the international sort of wilderness perspective. It's kind of cool. I wish I could be there.
Yeah. Hopefully they do some sort of live streaming or something like that.
Yeah, there's lots of opportunities to plug in.
Yeah. Okay, so before we go, we also linked something called a climate and economic justice screening tool, but I really haven't had much time to check that one out. So I was wondering if you can give us a scoop on that.
Yeah, we put a lot of stuff in this newsletter.
A lot of good links.
Catch, and this is worth your time if you have it. So basically you can click on a map and identify and see areas that have been labeled as, for instance, disadvantaged and why. So for Cumberland Island, you can see all kinds of cool data, but it includes the projected flood risk, where we're like in the 98th percentile, the expected building loss rates, where we're like in the 95th percentile, and a whole lot more. So it's kind of fun to play around in there and see, and you can compare to your home community or other parks that you may visit and see what their risks and sort of percentile rating is according to this tool.
I got a lot to check out from this newsletter.
You got some homework?
A lot of links. I got some homework, right? So we covered a lot of material today. So as always, if you have questions or feedback, let us hear it.
Yeah.
And if there's something you're interested in us covering, bring it to us. We'll do our best to cover it. Our volunteers are always committed to providing the information and context you need to help ensure Cumberland Island and its wilderness stay protected.
Yeah, we know how valuable your time is. So thanks for choosing to spend some of it with us today. Stay wild.
The Wild Cumberland Podcast is produced by Vertical River, and this episode was edited by Greg Cuson.
Wild Cumberland is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and all donations are tax deductible. Learn more and take action at wildcumberland.org.